Hello, everyone. A very good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar. Thank you for joining us for today's session. Today's session is one of the most important sessions, I feel. It's an MSME Samadhaan or ODR portal. Now, this is a vital initiative that, helps these MSMEs in resolving delayed payment issues effectively. I understand that this is very important for all MSMEs like us. And we have our expert with us here today, Ankita Singh. Ankita Singh has a decade of professional experience as a qualified company secretary and a CMA. She specializes in corporate compliance, financial strategy, and regulatory advisory. Over the past 5 years, she has been taking leadership responsibilities as an MSME head and helping a lot of MSMEs in resolving their day-to-day issues and in growing and going into the next orbit. So, without further delay, I would, want Ankita to take over and explain MSME Samadhan and ODR portal to all of us so that we can also, help ourselves in these delayed payment issues.
Thank you, Ankita. I would firstly like to thank the organizer for giving me such an eminent topic to talk on. It's basically a problem which every MSME is facing, and wherein the MSME के लिए खुद ही government जब कोई समाधान लेके आती है, so it's really important to talk on the same MSME समाधान. So a very good afternoon to everyone. Myself, as Ankita has given a vivid description of mine, CSCMA Ankita Singh. So I will be taking this topic, MSME Samadhan, recovering delayed payments legally. So wherein we said legally, तो हमें वो चाणक्य की कूटनीति याद आती है, जहां पे हम वो बोलते हैं ना, साम दाम दंड भेद. तो वो बोलते हैं कि सब करके हार गए, अब क्या बचा है कि हम कैसे अपना वो जो पेमेंट स्टक है वो हम वापस ले सके. So this webinar is all about how you can get your stuck payment, or rather delayed payment. So now, without saying, we all know that cash flow finance is the lifeline of every business, whether it is a MSME or whether it is a non-MSME. Finance to chahiye. So when we say, any MSME is really doing a good business, sales are happening, invoices are raised, and then you are very good on your payment side also, or you pay all your statutory dues, government dues, GST compliance, all on time. On top of that, you're also giving your employees and your vendors are timely paid, but the actual payment which a business has to be received, right, from the customers, it still remains stuck. So that creates the whole problem in the life of the MSME. Where the payment is stuck, it creates a pressure on the working capital. And not only the working capital, it also creates on pressure on my bank limits, right? So how to get it? And moreover, when we say कि हम ये बोलते हैं ना कि अगर घोड़ा घास से दोस्ती कर लेगा तो खाएगा क्या. So the same situation arises here. मैं यहाँ बोलूंगी कि अगर हम अपने कस्टमर्स से ही झगड़ा करके बैठे तो हम बेचेंगे किसको, हम बिजनेस बढ़ाएंगे कैसे. So this is how, though it's the pain point for every MSMEs, but still it fails. How to comply, how to overcome this delayed payment situation. So here I have come with a MSME Samadhan, which is a very initiative of Ministry of MSME, though under the RAMP program of 2023, wherein the budget was announced and the government has taken a proactive step, wherein the gateway for MSME Samadhan has now changed to ODR portal, online dispute resolution portal. So I'll be speaking on the same. So when I talk about my session roadmap, I'll be taking why this delayed payment matters to all our MSMEs. Then introduction of MSME Act 2006, rights and payment timelines. The role of MSME Samadhan and the ODR mechanism, Moreover, I'll be also covering who can file and what are the required documents and the filing process, a walk on the filing process through MSEFC and the ODR portal. And then, if we all remember, in the budget 2023-24's implementation of Section 43BH was introduced by our finance minister, which was itself a very good initiative, wherein it was no over here for all the MSME, a good relief, I would say, for all the MSME supplier, and then again a buyer compliance, and then I will be moving what are the common mistakes which we can avoid and the key takeaways from here. So let's get started. So why does the delayed payment matters? We all know when and as and when the invoice is raised, that is when your supply has been done and we have raised our invoice, the very first thing, the very first expense that is getting already triggered is my GST expense. No matter wherein I will be receiving my payment for the raised invoice or not, the first compliance, the first statutory compliance which I need to do is my GST compliance, right? Irrespective whether my payment will be received or not. So this is the first expenses which is like already triggered. Now, when I say my bank limits, so as my working capital is getting stuck, right, somewhere down the lane, so my bank limits also get stressed up. How? Because I have an interest cost, right? When I am doing this business to maintain my working capital, I have an interest cost. And accordingly, my stock statement, my debtors list, my creditors list also decides upon the drawing power of my bank business, right? So it is creating a more or less both interest cost and the drawing power pressure on me. And accordingly, as I rightly said, and as it is like beyond mentioning, that one payment of mine is stuck, my working capital gets blocked, right? If I'm not receiving from the supplier, how will be I able to maintain that cycle, right? My expense is somebody's income. So if I am stuck here only, in the same way, my income is somebody's expense, but that income needs to be recognized, right? And all these things, what happens? My growth slows. So no matter how good I am with my infrastructure, no matter how good I am with my, floating POs, closed sales, closed orders, but one thing which matters here is my payment. So if my payments get delayed or gets stuck, it is like, the vicious circle of mine. How to get out from here? So here, the important message which I want to give here is timely payment is not only my growth strategy. For every MSME, timely payment is the survival capital. Now, how does this MSMED Act, which was introduced in the 2006, how it acts as a legal backbone for any MSMEs? Now, what does the MSME Act says? It says the payment timeline. It describes the payment timeline. So what does it is? It says when there is no written agreement, when you have made your supplies and there is no written agreement, the payment timeline here is of 15 days. So I would repeat it again, when there is no agreement between the buyer and the supplier, the payment timeline here is of 15 days, which can go to the maximum of 45 days, even where agreement exists. Right? So even if you have a written agreement, even if you have a purchase order which says clearly or explicitly mention the payment terms, there also you cannot delay the payments beyond 45 days. Now this is the scenario wherein I was speaking about the payment timeline. But what if this timeline is not monitored and my payment gets stuck? If the payment gets delayed, so what, from my side, from the buyer side, So this MSMED Act says if the buyer fails to pay MSEs within the prescribed time, they are liable to pay interest. And that interest, my friend, is compound interest with monthly rest, which is 3 times the present bank rate. So you're understanding what are the consequences. You are just not going to be, only with the principal amount. As and when the payment gets delayed from the buyer side, the MSMED Act very strongly says that the buyer is liable to pay along with interest. And that interest will be the 3 times the present bank rate, compound interest, right? So claims can be taken to MSEFC. Here MSEFC is Member Secretary Facilitation Council. Every state from the state government has their MSEFC Council, which is a semi-quasi judicial body. So under this enactment of MSMED Act 2006, what has the government introduced to us? The government has introduced that for every state there must be a facilitation council where only and only delayed payment cases can be taken, right? So what is the institutional route? Okay, मुझे ये पता चल गया कि what is the stage wherein I can approach the government in form of MSEFC Council. I know what are the rights in terms of the supplier. I know what are the penalties if I am defaulter in terms of the buyer. But what is the institutional route? How can I claim? So the MSMED Act says that there is a MSME Samadhaan Portal, okay, which was there. Now the gateway for Samadhaan Portal has been routed through ODR portal. Firstly, there was no ODR portal. Last year on the MSME Day, 27th June 2025, the ministry has launched this ODR portal, wherein now every claim has to be filed through ODR portal, and accordingly it will be routed to MSME Samadhan if the conciliation fails. Okay, so as I was mentioning, every state has to have a MSEFC council. So this MSEFC council is nothing, it is a micro and small enterprise facilitation council. The act is very clear. The act is very clear in saying that mediate before you litigate. We understand the pain point from every MSc supplier's point of view. The very first challenge with the MSc suppliers here is, what if my business terms gets bad? Whenever there is any outrage, what we say, the very first thing we say is, I'll see you in the court. And when you say, I'll see you in the court, the whole situation changes, right? So the act here is very, very clear that first conciliate, right? Because there is nothing that cannot be conciliated. Mediate among, then go for litigation. So mediate before you litigate. So first and the foremost step here enacted by the MSMED Act is the conciliation first. And then if the conciliation fails, then only we should move towards the arbitration mechanism. Now, who can file the case? As you know, every MSME, the very first and the foremost question which comes to me, does any MSME can file the case? Yes, any MSC can file the case provided the supplier is registered under the Udyam. Right? You need to have the Udyam registration certificate. Supplier needs to be registered under the Udyam. So the first and the foremost priority for me is, if I am a MSME supplier, I need to have my Udyam on record. Now, can anyone under the Udyam, the one who has the Udyam, can go to the MSEFC Council or can file their claim on ODR portal? No. Only and only manufacturer and service provider. I'll repeat again. only and only manufacturer or service provider can file their claim. Traders are not allowed to file their claim. The act is like, as we were saying, as the, whole thing started with the pain of working capital. So somehow, and due to, the burdening of cases, the act is restricted only to the manufacturer and service provider. The trader does not fall under this preview. Again, when I say that any MSME, no, only the micro and the small enterprise. The one who has got the category of medium enterprise under the Udyam, they cannot file their case on the ODR or the Samadhaan portal. So these are the some prerequisites which one needs to check, basic checklist. Now again, what is the transactions? So there must be a transaction, right? Either goods supplied or services rendered. Then only it claims for the delayed payment, right? And what are the documents that I need to have on my record? The first and the foremost document which I need to have on the record is invoice. Invoice and the proof of supply. Again, the order can be verbal in nature, right? So there is no mandate that there has to be a written PO, okay? But there has a mandate wherein invoice is very much necessary and a proof of supply required. We suggest ongoing, my suggestion to all my MSc supplier will be, now whenever you supply to any of your vendor, you must have the acknowledgement receipt on your invoices, right? Because it acts as a proof of supply. Now, who can be my buyer? Can a MSc supplier, can a file case against anyone, no matter the category of buyer? Yes. A MSc supplier can file their case against any of the buyer, irrespective whether that buyer belongs to the company category, firm category, or no matter even if it is a Maharatna company, PSUs, okay, or the any other government organizations. The act stands same for all the buyers, okay. And one more thing here is that the buyer detail must be accurate. Why it is important here is because we all are moving towards, wherein online filing has been taken to ODR, online dispute resolution, wherein everything is like digitalized. So wherein any mistake of mine can cost in my dealing of the cases. As in supposedly, if I have mentioned the wrong email ID of my buyer, right? So what it will happen? The wrong email ID of my buyer or the wrong phone number of my buyer, then the whole thing will get jumbled up because the system generated notice will not be getting to them. They will not be taken, they will not be intimated that the case has been filed against them. So the details mentioned by us of our buyer must be very accurate. So wherein the act has said that the supplier needs to be only micro or small. Again, the act is also reiterating me the fact that my supplier can only be manufacturer and service provider, not trader. The act very well explicitly says that my buyer can be anyone, no matter even if it is a PSU, a government organization, or a Maharatna company. I can file my claim against any of the buyer, right? So now default. So payment is overdue beyond permitted period, wherein I have mentioned the minimum time frame wherein there is no agreement, it says 15 days. And even if the written agreement is there, which says 45 days can be the maximum time frame. So in that default, my case, I am totally eligible to file my case against in the MSME portal through ODR. So now what are the documents or what are the document checklist before filing should always be aware of? So, as I was mentioning, the first and the foremost thing which lies here is my identity and eligibility. When I say my identity and eligibility, I mean eligibility and identity of a MSc supplier. So you need to have, the supplier needs to have the Udyam certificate. Okay. And the second thing, the PAN and the GST details and the entity documents. So these three things are falls my basic identity checklist. Now, as I was mentioning, the case is all for delayed payment. So there must be a transaction proof. Wherein I say transaction proof, I need to have the proper PO or the work order with me. In terms or in absence of the proper PO or the work order, when I'm saying proper PO, I mean written PO or the work order. In the absence of a written PO or the work order, wherein I have a verbal communication on email or on WhatsApp, I need to file a affidavit, right? My agreement, my purchase agreement, my payment terms needs to be clearly mentioned on my PO or the work order. And most important is my tax invoice. I cannot file my claim on the ODR or Samadhaan portal if I don't have my tax invoice. Sometimes what happens, the practical experience here says many a times, as I was mentioning, as I raise invoice, as a MSc supplier raise the tax invoice, the very first liability, which is like GST liability. अगर आपने कुछ सप्लाई किया है और आपने इनवॉइस रेज कर दिया है, तो सबसे पहले जो आपका कंप्लायंस आ जाता है वो है जीएसटी पेमेंट का, right? So wherein there has already been a supplier gets a thing ki I don't know whether this person is going to make my payment or not, where he's skeptical on that. So what happened that he doesn't raise his tax invoice. What he, to substantiate his supply, he raises the performa invoice. In that case, one cannot file the case under the Samadhan or the ODR portal. A proper tax invoice needs to have on record. Now, the third and the very important thing here is supply proof. As I was mentioning, now the things have been like so much evolved or evolved, I would say, that only supplying a product doesn't substantiate me for filing a case. I need to have a proper delivery challan. I need to have a e-way bill, or even if I have a completion certificate on record that substantiate my supply proof. Rather, I would suggest to all my MSc suppliers who are listening to me right now that going forward, whenever you are supplying, whenever you are making supplies, just make sure that all your notes, all your invoices have GRN or the MRN number, goods received note or the materials received note number. All your invoices are properly acknowledged by them. Going forward, we can also do one thing. We can start taking a balance confirmation from them, sending our ledger. If we maintain all these records from the very first point of supply, it substantiates all our documents. Now, what is the outstanding proof? How can I substantiate my outstanding proof? The very first thing here is ledger confirmation. That is what I was mentioning, is it is always better on the MSc supplier part to have a ledger confirmation, right? Follow up emails. If my payment is getting stuck, if my payment is getting delayed, if I don't have anything on records to substantiate my supply, I should always be having a follow up emails record, right? And the most important thing here will be my bank statement, because it will substantiate whether I have received my payment or whether I have not received my payment. So if these document checklist, I have a thorough document checklist before filing, I can file my case on the MSME ODR and Samadhan portal. Now, how does this MSME Samadhan or MSEFC filing process works, right? So the very foremost thing, the very first thing, as I was mentioning, only the one who have their Udyam registration on record can file their case on the MSME Samadhan portal. So the very first thing needed here is I need to validate my Udyam details. Wherein I say I need to validate my Udyam details, I mean I need to have a check. What is the current status of my Udyam? Whether I'm a micro supplier, whether I'm a small supplier, or whether I'm a medium supplier, right? And then again, the most important here, when I say validate Udyam details, it says on the date of supply. On the date of supply, was my status? Wherein I was the micro supplier or wherein I was the small supplier. The second thing which I need to do is I need to enter my buyer detail, right? Buyer detail wherein I am mentioning, because everything is now system generated. You don't have the manual intervention when I am filing a case. So I need to be very proactive while mentioning the buyer details, as in the name of the organization, the authorized person name of the organization against whom I am filing the case, the mobile number, the address, the email ID, all needs to be checked and then filed, because all the further correspondence from the ministry will be on the details provided by us. So if I fail to provide correct detail of the buyer, it will altogether delay the process. The third thing which comes here is add invoice wise claim. So if I have my 10 invoice, I need to mention all the details of the 10 invoice, as in invoice number, invoice date, invoice amount. All needs to be curated in the timeline manner. Okay? First in, first out. Then the fourth and the most important document which I need to file is upload my documents. Being everything under the online, I need to file my documents. As in, what are the documents which I'll be needing? First and foremost, the document here will be my Udyam registration certificate, which will validate the government the status of me being a MSc supplier. The second important document that needs to be filed here is the purchase order, the copy of the purchase order or the work order. And if my work order is verbal and needs to file an affidavit for the same. The third and the most important here are my tax invoice. My tax invoice, the of the tax invoice. For my claim, I also upload ledger to submit my claim. And the most will be without MSME Act itself says if a buyer fails any MSc supplier on time, he is liable to pay along with interest, which is 3 times compounded timely on present bank rate. So these are the 5 to 6 documents which I need to have handy before filing my case on the ODR portal, which is now a gateway for the Samadhaan portal. I mention everything here. My details have been validated, my buyer details. I have added my claim according, uploaded all the documents. Now I am ready to submit my application. So as I submit my application here, the initiation notice from the Ministry of, mark my, the intimation notice from the MSME goes to both supplier and the buyer, which earmarks that the case has been filed against party stating my claim amount. So see, here is played without any intervention of any legal or judiciary body, right? So as and when I submit my application, there is a system generated intimation notice which is being duly received by the buyer and the seller. Once the notice has been received by them, the portal itself allows a timely 15 to 30 days कि you can conciliate the matter among you. But if it fails, if the whole process fails of the conciliation, then MSCFC can take up the matter. So when I say that the MSCFC take up the matter, it is your pre-MSCFC hearings. So there are hearings taken by the semi-quasi judicial body, wherein the notices for appearance has been given to both buyer and the supplier. Nowadays, we being from Samadhan to ODR, these hearings are on the online portal itself, wherein it saves time and it is tech savvy. But again, the council takes up the matter in a very first thing. As I was saying, the act is very clear. The MSMED Act is very clear with the intent of law that mediate before you litigate. The only purpose of mediation, the only purpose of MSMED Act here is to overcome your delayed payment for MSE suppliers, to overcome the burden of the working capital, which is somehow or the other gets stuck due to my delayed payment. So the very first attempt wherein the case has been taken by the MSCFC, it gives you chances for the conciliation. So the first three hearings from here is given to me for the conciliation. So if both the parties fails to conciliate here, then the matter is put up for the arbitration. Okay, so I would say it is the whole act itself is a initiative from the government, wherein the only intent of law is to mediate before you litigate, wherein the burden of the working capital, wherein the burden of delayed payment is like, somehow or the other is processed in a flow. Now, the introduction of the Section 43BH by the government. Now, what does it do? So, it also creating a tax pressure on buyer. हम वो बोल रहे थे ना कि चाणक्य की कूटनीति, जहां पे मिनिस्ट्री ने पहले बोला कि आपको एमसीए पे एमएसएमई की रिपोर्टिंग करनी पड़ेगी, को पेमेंट कितने लोगों को टाइमली दिया और लोगों को नहीं दिया। फिर आया आपका एमएसएमईडी एक्ट, जहां पे आपने उनको समाधान और ओडीआर के डालना चालू। Now when all not working, the thing was Section 43BH, which buyers. So when I was saying that delayed payment to my now has buyer's side tax consequence. Now, what is the say? It says if a buyer is paid within the MSMED timeline, okay, if I am paying within the MSMED timeline of that 15 days and 45 days, then the expense is allowed in the same year. But what if I am paying beyond timeline? So obviously that expense is becomes disallowed in that year. So if I am paying in the next year I mean next financial year. So deduction will be allowed on the actual payment. So practical message here is before 43BH, delay was mainly a recovery issue, right? कि ठीक है मेरे को recover करना है, but now it is also a tax compliance issue for the buyer to have a clean audit report. This is a very strong message. So I have some simple example to make this understanding of whole 43BH. It's like supposedly I have a purchase from MSC supplier, value being 1 lakh, okay? And the invoice date of that supply is 1st March 2026. Clear? So what will be my permitted timeline? My permitted timeline says if there is no agreement, I am liable to receive that payment within 15 days. But even if I have a written agreement on record, the maximum time frame which is allowed to me is of 45 days. So अगर मैं 1 मार्च को मेरा इनवॉइस का डेट है तो आइडियली मेरा पेमेंट सिनेरियो कब बन जाता है? I need to pay on either on 15th of March, right? Or maximum I can delay it to 15th of April. 45 days वाला criteria मैंने लिया. But when I am making this payment, I am making this payment on 20th of May, right? So what does the tax implication for the whole thing? What is my tax implication? The tax implication here is my deduction. Though this transaction was for the year 25-26, right? So this whole deduction shifts to the year of payment. So that is why this timely payment is no more a recovery process. It is also, the government has vividly and explicitly said, it is also the tax compliance for the buyer. Now, what does the buyer compliance checklist says? When I am mentioning this MSMED Act, I cannot give the onus of this MSMED Act to my MSE suppliers only, right? There has to be a checklist or checkpoints for my MSE buyers also. So what does this MSE buyer compliance checklist says? It says, collect your Udyam certificate from the vendors. Yes. Why? Because it is very important to validate the Udyam certificate from these suppliers, right? Whether what is the category of them, whether they are the micro or small, whether they are medium. If they are falling under medium category, this whole thing doesn't sound. Whether they are falling to manufacturer, service provider, or a trader. So I need to collect Udyam certificates from my vendors. This is the checklist point from the buyer's preview. Okay? Now the second thing which I need to take care is of my create a micro and small vendor master. Very important, right? Because if I have a master with me, I can see whether this MSC supplier has been paid or not paid on time. Exactly. And the third thing which I need to take care as a buyer is I need to track invoice wise due dates. वो जो 15 days 45 days वाला criteria है, I need to take care of invoice wise due dates. Now the fourth important point from the buyer's point of view here is coming is I need to pay my critical MSC's dues before year end, right? In order to get a deduction, I need to pay my critical MSCs before due end. And the most important here part is reconcile before audit and tax audit without saying. So all these things was from the point of view of the buyer compliance checklist. What in they need to take care to abide this 43BH rule. Now, there are also some common mistakes or practical precautions which needs to be taken care of. So when I say what are the common mistakes from the supplier's point of view is filing without status check. As I mentioned, eligibility dispute. Because many times what was happening, the case was getting registered. आपने केस फाइल किया, मैं ये सिनेरियो की बात कर रही हूँ जब हमारा ओडीआर पोर्टल पिक्चर में नहीं आया था एंड वी वेर लाइक टेकन केयर बाय समाधान पोर्टल wherein manual intervention was there. So when you file the case and I need to check whether what was the status of my supply. What happened here, I was taking care of one of my client wherein the conciliation hearing started, wherein conciliation failed, and then we moved towards the arbitration. All the arbitral hearing was done, and accordingly the judgment also, seeing the whole scenario, was in our favor. But one mistake of my supplier took the case 360-degree round. And what was that mistake? That mistake was I had not taken a check on my Udyam registration certificate. What is my status? Whether I am a micro, small or medium. There can be counter questions. How does the system allowed? So I was taking this case wherein it was like in the year 2017 filed. So I don't know how proactive the system was working. And this was something which was not raised by my counter opponent also. So everything, there was almost 10 to 12 hearings for the case also, right? But at the end, the whole judgment was taken aback just because of my supply status. So it is very important part here to check on my eligibility. Now the second important thing which I need to take care here is claiming unreconciled amount. Many times what happens whenever we file a case and then the conciliation proceedings start. Okay, so what is the first thing that we get to know is the other side come and saying we don't have so much of dues. According to my book, it is only this much, and we say so. Herein also the time gets killed. So we need to have the proper claimed reconciled amount before buyer giving us any objection. Again, as I was mentioning, the weak evidences, as in if I don't have any delivery or a service proof record, I cannot substantiate my claim. So going forward, I would suggest to every MSC suppliers that please maintain a proper service record, as in proof of that yes, the goods has been received to them, acknowledgement of your invoices. And then, as I was mentioning, without fail, putting up the wrong buyer details. If by mistake in the mobile number, I missed on the last digit of the mobile number, right? So it will be creating the whole procedural delay. So these are the some mistakes or practical precautions for my MSC supplier. Now, what are the mistakes from the buyer's side? So if my buyer is failing to maintain the proper MSME vendor master, it's a big no to them. They must have a proper MSME vendor master with them. Then ignoring invoice aging. As I was saying, you must pay your at the year end. मेरे पास जो MSC की लिस्ट आती है, मुझे वहां पे वो aging wise criteria बहुत important है मेरे लिए, right? Then the third important thing from the buyer side is we fail to raise our concern, right? We fail to raise our concern as and when this thing has been taken, supply has been made. हमको सप्लाई होता है and then we sleep. We don't need to inspect or check. And as my supplier starts saying me, I need my payment, and then my buyer, walks from his sleep. Arey, yes, this is a default supply. So it is very important for the buyer to give them a written dispute record. Now, the final and the most important thing which they need to take care is not attending the proceedings. Many times, what I have seen here, when the case has been filed, right, the supplier, the one who has to get the money, is very proactive in attending all the hearing, but the buyer is least bothered even in attending hearing. But the whole thing here applies is, if you fail to attend the hearing, even if your position is right, the case can be referred for the ex parte order. So it is very important to keep these points in mind while we are filing the cases. Now, I'll quickly wrap up on the MSMED Act section 15 to section 17, wherein my section 15 says buyer's liability to make payment. So what does it say? It says where any supplier supplies any goods or services, the buyer shall make payment thereof on or before the date agreed upon between him and the supplier in writing. And when there is no agreement in this behalf, the payment needs to be made before the appointed day. And in no case shall the period agreed upon between the supplier and the buyer in writing exceed 45 days from the day of acceptance or the day of deemed acceptance. So quickly I would narrate what appointed day here means. So appointed day is nothing. It is the day following immediately after the expiry of period of 15 days from the day of acceptance. As I told you, when there is no written agreement, we follow the criteria of 15 days. So, and what is the day of acceptance? The day of actual delivery of goods or rendering of services. In case of written objection within 15 days and the day on which such objection is removed by the supplier. And what is day of deemed acceptance? The day of deemed acceptance, say the day of the actual delivery of goods or rendering of services. So these dates needs to be like very critically examined under section 15. Now, I have some credit period interpretation. जैसे कि मैं आपको बता रही थी, appointed day, day of acceptance and day of deemed acceptance. Now, scenario 1, where there is no agreement between my buyer and my MSC supplier, there is no agreement and there is no query raised. So what will be my deciding date? My deciding date here will be my day of delivery. That will be my deemed acceptance, right? So यहाँ पे क्या हो गया मेरा payable, my payable becomes within 15 days of delivery. Now scenario 2, where there is no agreement, final. अगर agreement नहीं है तो 15 दिन है मेरे पास, ठीक है, but query है, सामने वाले ने क्वेरी रेज किया है, तो वहां पे क्या होगा मेरा डिसाइडिंग डेट? माय डिसाइडिंग डेट इन दैट सिनेरियो विल बी माय डे ऑफ एक्सेप्टेंस, दैट इज 15 days from the delivery, date of acceptance. So 15 plus 15, that is 30 days from delivery, क्योंकि सामने वाले ने क्वेरी रेज किया था ना, तो अगर क्वेरी रेज है तो उसका एक्सेप्टेंस होना चाहिए. So 15 plus 15, 30 days. Now scenario number 3. What is my scenario number 3? My scenario number 3 is there is an agreement but no query. यहाँ पहले केस में क्या था? अग्रीमेंट नहीं था बट क्वेरी थी. अभी के सिनेरियो में क्या है? मेरे पास अग्रीमेंट है बट मेरे पास क्वेरी नहीं है. तो व्हाट विल बी माय डिसाइडिंग डेट? माय डिसाइडिंग डेट हियर बिकम्स maximum 45 days from the delivery. And the scenario 4 here is agreement and query. ठीक है? So I have my agreement which itself says 45 days तो है मेरे पास पेमेंट करने के लिए, बट क्वेरी भी है. तो जब मैं क्वेरी करूंगी तो मेरा डीम्ड एक्सेप्टेंस कब हो जाएगा? 15 days from delivery. So what is my payable here? I need to pay him within 15 plus 45, that is 60 days. So my credit period here will be of 60 days. Now, what does section 16 of the MSMED Act says? It says interest on delayed payment. As I was saying, where any buyer fails to make payment to the supplier as per section 15, he is liable to pay compound interest with monthly at 3 times of the bank rate. Supposedly, this is the hypothetical situation. This is not the present bank rate. The present bank rate right now is 5.5. So supposedly the present bank rate is 6.75 in this scenario. Then my rate of interest under section 16 of the MSMED Act will be 20.25%. Now section 17. पहले आया section 15, which makes buyers to pay the liable to pay within the 15 days 45 days वाला criteria, appointed day, acceptance day, right? सेक्शन 16 ने क्लियरली बोल दिया कि अगर आप वो पेमेंट फेल करते हो तो आपको विद इंटरेस्ट देना है, which is 3 times the bank rate. And now my section 17 says payment with interest. Buyer shall be liable to pay the amount with interest thereon as provided under section 16. Now, as I have mentioned, MSME Samadhaan, we have quickly taken the walkthrough of MSME Samadhaan. ये just एक cycle मैंने बनाया था कि कैसे we should approach the MSME Samadhaan. So first and foremost thing is my scenario where I approach the buyer. ठीक है, मैंने बायर को अप्रोच किया और फर्स्ट सिनेरियो ऐसा हो गया कि मेरे अप्रोच करने पर ही मुझे मेरा पेमेंट रिसीव हो गया, तब तो वो वहीं के वहीं सिचुएशन एंड हो जाती है, राइट? लेकिन सिचुएशन वर्सन कब होती है? सिचुएशन वर्सन तब होती है व्हेन आई एम अप्रोचिंग द बायर एंड माय पेमेंट इज स्टिल नॉट रिसीव्ड. सो व्हाट आई विल डू, I'll file my case under the MSME ODR portal, which will be taking me to the Samadhan portal. Then accordingly, my hearings will be there, right? And if I fail after the hearing, the execution of the petition will be there, right? So this is the whole scenario. So there is one judgment before the Honorable Supreme Court of India, wherein the NBCC Limited versus State of West Bengal. Okay, the judgment was on the 10th January 2025. So यहाँ पे एक issue raise हुआ था whether it was saying whether prior registration under section 8 of the MSMED Act is mandatory for an MSME to invoke dispute resolution under section 18 of the act, right? तो यहाँ पे क्या बोल रहा है, क्या मुझे, क्योंकि बहुत बार ये शिल्पी जजमेंट में आया था, sorry, I'm taking this case laws here, but it is very important to understand from the MSE suppliers point of view, because there was one judgment wherein it was saying that on the date of supply I need to be MSE registered, Udyam registered. Supposedly, I am not registered on the date of supply, I cannot file my claim. But this recent case law, which I am referring right now, the judgment came on the 10th of January 2025, wherein it was say interpretation of section 18. The court held that section 18 does not impose a registration perquisite. So mind all my MSE suppliers, friend, that it is not a registration perquisite. It noted that the phrase any party to a dispute, so rightly said, any party to a dispute in section 18 is broad and inclusive, allowing MSMEs registered or unregistered to access remedies available under section 18. So even if I am not registered as Udyam on the date of supply, no issue. If I'm taking a registration after that and then filing the case, then also it is very much on my fundamental rights. Uh, so now, purpose and object of the MSMED Act, as I have rightly said, the court retreated the MSMEDs Act primary objective is to support and promote MSMEs, often referred to as the backbone of the Indian economy. It emphasized that creating barriers to assessing remedies, such as making registration mandatory, would undermine the Act's legislative intent. So the matter settled here was pre-registration not required. So this matter is referred to the larger bench right now. So as I was mentioning, the government introduced the ODR portal for MSME under the RAMP program. So what is this ODR? ODR is the modern counterpart of the ADR mechanism, like negotiations, mediation, arbitration, etc. It is a powerful communication technologies, case management tools, and advanced technology allow ODR to curate a quick, effective, and efficient case-specific solution. So now this was all together ministry is a ministry of MSME initiative, I would say, and I would really say a thank you to them. Before, what was the scenario? Before this ODR coming into the picture, everything was under the manual intervention, and the state body being the only sole body, I would say, who was on the judgment, taking judgment part. So the cases were getting delayed because the intent of the law here was that within 90 days the claim should be settled. But due to, altogether lack of manpower, burdening of cases, because even a small portion, if a delayed, if a stuck for the MSc, no matter how big the quantum is, it was registered as a case. So taking care of all these limitations, this ODR pitch came into the picture, and it was introduced, it was taken practically imposed on the 27th of June 2025 on the MSME day. Now, what is this MSCFC? Just I was telling you before, it's a formal legal process under MSMED Act 2006, that is conciliation and the arbitration. And then came into the MSME ODR platform. And again, if on my ODR platform I fail to resolve my case, it is referred to pre-MSCFC. So what are the 5 takeaways that I can give from here is timely payment is a statutory right of micro and small enterprises, right? So MSME Samadhaan is the gateway to MSCFC remedy, and ODR makes dispute resolution more digital and accessible. Section 43BH creates tax pressure on buyers, and accordingly, documentation is the backbone of recovery and compliance. Mind, my friends, if your documentation is actually accurate, nobody can stop you from claiming your disputed amount. So, Ankita, I would just like to, close this session by narrating one story. With no offense to any of my friend, there was one case. How does our Indian judiciary system work? So one of my friend, a lawyer by profession, again I'm saying not on records, nothing to anybody's profession. So he was the 4th or 5th generation lawyer in his family, and there was one case, which was taken care by the 1st generation of lawyers, okay, of his family. So I was talking, he is a 5th generation, my friend, and the case was from the 1st generation. So when my friend, the 5th generation lawyer, went to the court, and appeared before the court and he gave such a nice, thing, and the case finally gets closed. The case finally gets closed. What a overwhelming journey for that fifth generation lawyer. So he was like awestruck कि आज तो केस मैं जीत गया, जो केस मेरे परदादा लोग चला रहे थे और तब भी वो सॉल्व नहीं हो रहा था, आज तो मैंने विक्ट्री ले ली उस केस में. So he went all with his happy face to his family and narrate the whole story. So I was taken aback. Why? Because the whole family was not happy with that. They were like, "Kya? Case close ho gaya?" So he was like, I really did awesome, appeared before the council, make my judgments, and finally see judgment day." So he was like, अरे ये केस हम इतनी पीढ़ियों से इसलिए तो चला रहे थे ताकि हमारा घर चल सके, और तुमने वो केस क्लोज करवा दिया. सो आर इंडियन जुडिशियरी सिस्टम इज स्टिल लैकिंग, wherein we are
Yeah.
still stuck with the thing, तारीख पे तारीख, तारीख पे तारीख. So, bringing the Samadhan into picture and now moving towards the ODR, I would say is a very, very good step from the Ministry of MSME to protect the supplier's interest. So that's all from my side. Thank you. I would really love to take questions from you now.
Right. Thank you so much, Ankita. That was such an insightful session. And आपने जो end में story बताई, sadly, sometimes it is the harsh reality. And
Yes.
good to see that such things, things like ODR are coming up, which will give a faster resolution, or hopefully ये सब चीजें better होती जाएंगी. So
Yes.
yes, we do have a few questions.
Yes,
Um,
please.
yes. Is there any time period for applying in MSME Samadhan? Is
So,
the first question asked by Mr. Manoj Kumar.
okay. So again, there is no time frame as such, but again, this MSME Samadhan is also governed by the Limitation Act, which
Hmm.
says from the 3 years from the date of the last acknowledgement.
Hmm.
Supposedly मैंने किसी को सप्लाई किया, ठीक है,
Hmm.
और मैं उनको पेमेंट के लिए भी चेस कर रही हूँ, तो वो जो मेरा लास्ट एक्नॉलेजमेंट होता है ना उनके साइड से, एज इन टर्म्स ऑफ पेमेंट रिसीव्ड और इन टर्म्स ऑफ एनी ईमेल कम्युनिकेशन फ्रॉम देम दैट यस आई विल बी पेइंग यू ऑन दिस वेरी डेट, या मैंने लास्ट पेमेंट आज के डेट में रिसीव कर लिया, दो मेरा ये
Hmm.
सप्लाई था 2020 का 2020, but the last payment I have received from him is on today's date. So my limitation period will be from here to 3 years. ठीक
Got
है?
it.
So that is the time frame involved. Yes.
Got it. One more question is whether traders and medium enterprises are allowed.
So, as I told you very rightly, somehow this act is not protective towards the trader. As the intent of law itself is, to work on the working capital. So, trader के पास ऐसे भी working capital का margin कम ही होता है, because the
Hmm.
whole theory is taking and supplying somewhere. But this manufacturer and service provider is under the burden of the working capital, right? Because they
Hmm.
have a huge term loan जिसपे आपको एक इंटरेस्ट पेमेंट करना है, आपके वैसे ही आपकी मैन्युफैक्चरिंग साइकिल बड़ी होती जाती है, तो somehow it is not for the traders, and again without fail it is not for the medium enterprises also.
Hmm.
Everywhere the act itself says MSCs supplier, micro and small, so like that.
Hmm.
Yes.
Got it. There is one more question. Um, Question from Mr. Nilesh Mehta.
Mm-hmm.
It's a long one. He is saying that I had supplied materials to one of my clients 3 years ago,
Okay.
and he is not paying from last 3 years, even after continuous follow-up. When I
Okay.
visited there, he gave me a check of 2.5 lakhs,
Uh-huh.
but check has been returned 3 times again. And then
Okay.
the next check he got for 2 lakhs.
Mm-hmm.
And then after 3 years, when Mr. Nilesh visited his shop again, He got a
Mm-hmm.
payment of 1.5 lakhs and an order of 6 lakhs. And
Okay.
he said that you need to give me the materials first, only then he will clear the old payment and this payment, otherwise, he will not help me. So, is Samadhan also applicable for such cases? So,
Yes,
basically, some
Samadhan
old
is.
payment is also stuck, and new payment is also, I mean, he needs material first, and then only he will release any payment.
हाँ सो जैसे आई टोल्ड यू ना दी आयरनी हियर इटसेल्फ लाइज हम बोल रहे थे ना जैसे मैंने अपना स्टार्टिंग की लाइन बोला कि घोड़ा अगर घास से दोस्ती कर ले तो खाएगा क्या हमारे
Correct.
सिनेरियो में ऐसा हो जाता है कि अगर सप्लायर अपने परचेजर से दगाबाजी कर ले या दुश्मनी कर ले तो कमाएगा क्या सो सेम सिचुएशन पे है ये मिस्टर मेहता सो व्हाट इज हैपनिंग हियर इज यस एमएसएमई समाधान पोर्टल you can file your old claims because he has not paid you in full. He has paid you only 1 lakh against your 3 or 2.5 lakh claim. So
Hmm.
you can file the remaining amount with interest on Samadhan portal. क्योंकि आपने सप्लाई भले ही 3 साल पहले किया है पेमेंट तो उसने आपको अभी दिया ना 1 लाख का तो आपका
Hmm.
लिमिटेशन पीरियड तो उस डेट से काउंट हो जाता है राइट
Right.
एंड जो उनका सेकंड क्वेश्चन था सेकंड पार्ट था एज आई टोल्ड यू ना आयरनी लाइज हियर ओनली हम ना वो अपने बिजनेस टर्म्स को कहीं ना कहीं खराब नहीं करना चाहते हैं क्योंकि
Hmm.
हमको सप्लाईज तो चाहिए ही चाहिए सो समहाउ देखो वही किया इन्होंने कि एक 6 लाख का ऑर्डर पंच किया 1 लाख देकर एंड नाउ ऑल्सो ही इज सेइंग कि पहले आप मुझे मटेरियल दो फिर मैं आपको ये दूंगा सो इन throwing this all these lights that is why our government became proactive वो जो 43 BH का टैक्स कंप्लायंस है या जो ये
Correct.
एमसीए रिपोर्टिंग है वो इसके लिए ही है अगर आप वो रिपोर्टिंग अपना ऑडिट रिपोर्ट मेंटेन कर रहे हैं आपके जो बायर है तो उनको तो ये डालना पड़ेगा कि ये पेमेंट
Hmm.
अभी भी उन्होंने आपको दिया नहीं है और
Correct.
अकॉर्डिंगली उनके ऑडिटर को भी ये क्वालिफाई उनका ऑडिट रिपोर्ट क्वालिफाई नहीं करना चाहिए
Hmm.
राइट so again, he has a full right to claim for his whole amount. And I would
Right.
say here also, the duty of the auditor, all our stakeholders come into picture. They should also guide them, those buyers,
Hmm.
how important it is for them to pay on the right time to all their
Hmm.
MSC suppliers to avoid any interest, right?
Right.
Hopefully,
Correct.
I think I've answered his question.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Yes.
And thanks a lot for the session. It was very, very insightful, and I think it was a very important topic. MSME Samadhan, we got so many registrations, and all the viewers also, I'm sure they must have taken away a lot of things from this session. So thank you so much. Maybe next time we can also schedule a session where you can show the portal how to apply.
Yes,
So a
yes,
practical session, I think our viewers would really love that also. So
yes,
yes,
definitely. Thank you for the organizer for giving me such an eminent and prominent topic, and it's really very close to my heart always. मैं हमेशा जब ये समाधान आया तो मैंने यही सोचा what a beautiful name given by the ministry.
true.
Samadhan, and we are looking
Uh,
for the Samadhan only. So thank you
correct.
so much, Ankita. Thank you.
Yes,
Yes.
thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Chalo.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
to the viewers also. Have a good day and see you soon in the next webinar. Bye.
Bye.